The message from the past it was a cold, rainy morning in San Francisco. Gray clouds stretched across the sky like a heavy curtain, and soft drops tapped against the tall windows of Sundar Pichai's office. He stood silently by the glass wall of his corner room at Google headquarters, sipping plain black coffee. The city below looked almost motionless, drenched and quiet. It was rare for Sundar to pause like this. He was usually already deep into meetings and emails by this hour. But today felt different. There was a strange heaviness in the air. And for some reason, he had woken up that morning with an unusual feeling in his chest. Not anxiety, not fear. Just something unsettling, like a forgotten memory was trying to find its way back to him. He returned to his desk, opened his laptop, and scanned through emails. Most were routine. Meeting requests, investor updates, tech reports, partnership proposals. He moved swiftly until his eyes stopped at a subject line that made his fingers freeze midair. "We need to talk. It's been a long time." Raj. Sundar stared at the name. It had been nearly 3 decades since he'd last heard it. Rajiv Kumar, or Raj, as everyone called him, had once been his closest friend back in Chennai. Not just a friend, his childhood companion. The boy who knew everything about Sundar before he ever stepped into the world of Silicon Valley. They shared snacks after school, studied together under streetlights when the power would go out, and talked about dreams. Raj wanted to be a filmmaker, Sundar an engineer. They had promised to stay in touch forever, but forever didn't happen. Not after that one night. When everything changed, Sundar hadn't thought about Raj in years. Their friendship had ended so suddenly, so painfully, that he had buried it deep, never telling anyone, not even his wife. Yet now, here it was, knocking at the door of his high-tech kingdom. With trembling fingers, he opened the message. "Dear Sundar, this might come as a shock, but I need your help. You owe me. We both know why. Meet me at Le Jardin Cafe in Palo at 4 p.m. Come alone, please. Raj." His heart began to race. Why now? Why after so long? And what did he mean by "you owe me"? The words echoed in his mind like whispers from a ghost. Sundar leaned back in his chair, letting the memory pull him back to another place, another time years ago when he was just a thin, quiet boy with a love for science, and a dream too big for his small world. He remembered how Raj was the bold one, always talking fast, walking with confidence, joking with everyone. Where Sundar was shy and reserved, Raj lit up every room. Sundar admired him, looked up to him. Sometimes he even wished he could be more like Raj, but behind the smiles there had always been something restless in Raj and Edge, a hunger to prove himself, and perhaps a trace of envy. As the clock ticked closer to 4 p.m., Sundar's mind kept going back and forth between past and present. He canceled 2 meetings, told his assistant he needed some personal time, and left the office quietly, dressed in a plain black hoodie and jeans. No entourage, no chauffeur, just himself. Like the old days. The cafe was a small place, quiet and hidden behind a row of trees. He recognized it immediately. It was where he used to take long walks when he first moved to Palo Alto, back when nobody knew his name. And he was just another nervous immigrant trying to make it. When he entered, the smell of fresh pastries and roasted coffee filled the air. Soft jazz played in the background. Sundar scanned the room. At the farthest corner, sitting alone with a worn leather bag and a pair of dark sunglasses, was Raj. He looked older, thinner, but the smirk on his face was unmistakable. "Hello, Sundar," he said calmly, as if no years had passed. "I knew you'd come." Sundar sat across from him slowly. "What's this about, Raj?" Raj leaned in. "You haven't changed much. Still cautious, still polite, but I bet underneath you're wondering what I know and what I want." Sundar didn't respond. His eyes stayed locked on Raj, waiting. Raj sighed. "We could have had everything, Sundar. You remember those nights in Chennai when we used to dream about changing the world? We were going to build something together, but you left me behind. You didn't just forget me, you erased me." "That's not true," Sundar said, his voice steady. "You stopped answering. You cut off everyone? Raj's laugh was dry. Because you humiliated me. You let me take the fall? Those words hit like thunder. Sundar's face went pale. Raj. We both made that mistake, and you know it. But Raj wasn't listening. He reached into his bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. What's in there? Sundar asked. Something you'll want to keep quiet. Raj replied coldly. Something from our final year in Chennai. Something the media would love to see. Sundar stared at the envelope. Raj continued. I didn't want to do this. But I have no choice. I have been drowning for years. I have tried everything. I lost my job. My wife left. I've got nothing left but this. And you. There was silence. Heavy and painful. So, what do you want? Sundar finally asked. Raj took a deep breath. $10 million. No questions. In cash. Next week. Sundar looked at him, stunned. That's blackmail. Call it survival, Raj said. Or justice, depending on how you want to see it. Sundar sat frozen. The betrayal cut deep not just because of the threat, but because it was coming from someone who had once been like a brother to him. And if I don't pay? Sundar asked. Raj, single quotes. Tone turned colder. Then the world finds out the truth. And you know how headlines work? It won't matter if it's real or not. They'll run with it, destroy you, your family, your name. A storm had started outside. Wind howled against the windows, and rain splattered like tiny pebbles. Inside, the cafe remained calm, but Sundar's mind was spinning like a tornado. He stood up slowly. You want to destroy 30 years of friendship over money. He said softly, I trusted you, Raj. I would have helped you. But this... He shook his head, turned, and walked away. But just before he reached the door, Raj's voice stopped him. You think walking away ends this? You think your silence will save you? Sundar didn't turn around. And Raj said something. Then that chilled Sundar to the bone. I still have the notebook. You remember the one with your name all over it? Sundar's feet stopped mid-step. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Not that notebook. He hadn't thought of it in years. Hadn't remembered what was inside. But now everything came rushing back. What had started as a teenage mistake could now cost him everything. He walked out into the storm, heart pounding, mind racing. Whatever was coming wasn't going to be easy. Asterisk the notebook. Storm followed Sundar home that evening like a shadow refusing to let go. The wipers of his electric car dragged across the windshield, clearing the sheets of water as he drove in silence. He wasn't listening to music. His phone was on silent. His mind was flooded with questions, all looping around a single word. Notebook. The rain blurred the road ahead. But the past was clearer than ever. As he pulled into his quiet driveway, tucked behind tall hedges in Los Altos Hills, he sat in the parked car for a few minutes before stepping out. His home, a peaceful blend of glass and stone, usually brought him calm. But not tonight. Tonight, even its silence felt accusatory. His wife, Anjali, wasn't home yet, and the kids were away at a school event. The house felt too big. Too quiet. Too full of memories that were now cracking open. He went straight to his study, closed the door behind him, and sat at the old oak desk where he usually reviewed strategy documents. But today his hands weren't reaching for spreadsheets or presentation decks. They were digging deep into the drawers for something much older. An old photograph. He found it buried under some old letters. A faded picture from 1993. 3 boys standing on a dusty street in Chennai. Arms thrown around each other's shoulders, wide smiles on their faces. Sundar, Raj, and a third boy. RDEEP. Sundar single. Quote. Heart ached as he stared at the photo. PRADEE. He hadn't thought about him in decades. The 3 of them had been inseparable. Back in school, they called themselves the Triad. Sundar was the quiet thinker, Raj was the wild dreamer, and PRADEP. Pradeep was the glue. The one who always kept peace, always kept them grounded, but something had torn them apart. Something to do with that notebook. And Sundar had spent years trying to forget. Now it was back. He closed his eyes and let himself remember. They were all in 12th grade, getting ready for their final board exams. The competition was fierce, the pressure unbearable. Sundar had been working day and night trying to get a scholarship to go abroad. Raj, on the other hand, was struggling, brilliant in his own way, but reckless. He didn't care for grades. He wanted attention. Pradeep tried to balance both worlds. And then came the notebook. It had been a simple college rule diary, blue cover, frayed edges. Sundar had started using it to write down his thoughts, equations, ideas for software, inventions, even his feelings. It was private, deeply personal. No one was supposed to see it, but one afternoon, while Sundar was away at a science competition, Raj found it, and everything changed. When Sundar returned, the whole school seemed to know things they shouldn't. People whispered, some laughed. A few avoided eye contact. Sundar didn't understand why until he confronted Raj. He denied reading it, but Pradeep didn't. Pradeep had found Raj reading it aloud to a group of boys behind the school building, laughing, mocking, using Sundar's dreams like jokes. And when Pradeep tried to stop him, Raj lashed out, called him weak, said Sundar deserved to be humbled. Sundar remembered confronting Raj in the middle of the street one evening. There had been yelling, pushing. It ended with Raj throwing the notebook into a drainage canal and storming off. Sundar had spent hours digging through the filthy water to find it, but it was gone. Or so he thought. Until today. I still have the notebook, Raj had said. How? Had he fished it out after Sundar left? Or had he made a copy? And what was in it that could be so damaging now? Sundar tried to recall what he had written. He remembered one particular entry, one he had never told anyone about. A mistake. A desperate idea. He had written a program, a small piece of code meant to help students calculate marks. But someone had used it to hack into the school's internal system. And it had been traced back to Sundar's login. No one ever found out who really accessed it. Until now. He had buried the memory. Was that what Raj had? His phone buzzed, snapping him out of the storm in his mind. It was a message from Anjali. Dinner at the fundraiser ran late. We'll be back in an hour. Love you. He replied simply, love you too. Then, without thinking further, he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened a secure browser, typed in an old name, and searched Pradeep Narayan and Chennai. A few results popped up. LinkedIn, an article, and finally a website. Founder and director, Mindwell Trust. His fingers froze. Mindwell Trust was a non-profit mental health organization in India. Sundar had heard of it vaguely. He clicked on the site, and there he was, Pradeep, older now, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked peaceful, and suddenly, Sundar knew what he had to do. He sent a message through the contact form. Pradeep, this is Sundar Pichai. I need to speak with you urgently. It's about Raj. Please. Within minutes, his phone buzzed again. Sundar. I've been waiting for this day. Call me. He called instantly. Hello, came Pradeep's voice, deep and calm. Pradeep, I can't believe it's really you, Sundar said. It's me, Pradeep replied. And I know why you're calling. You do? He found you, didn't he? Raj, Sundar sat down slowly. Yes, there was a pause. He came to me 3 months ago, Pradeep said. Tried the same thing, said he had the notebook, wanted money. I didn't give it to him. What did he go? Sundar asked. He left, Pradeep said quietly. But I think he's spiraling. He's desperate. Sundar felt a wave of sadness. He said he has something that could ruin me. Something from the notebook. Pradeep sighed. He's using your fear. The truth is, that notebook. Yes, it had some things in it. Things we all regret. But we were kids, Sundar. And I don't think he has the original. I think he only has pieces. Memories twisted into weapons. But he sounded so sure, Sundar whispered. He always does, Pradeep replied. But, Sundar, if he's doing this, it means he needs help. He's hurting. Sundar stared out the window at the fading storm. So, what do I do? There was silence for a moment. Then Pradeep said, "You face him, but not with fear, with truth, and with compassion. Maybe that's the only way to save all of us." The call ended, but Sundar didn't feel relief. He felt the weight of the past tightening around his present. The next morning, he made a decision. He asked his security team to find out everything about Raj, where he was staying, who he was contacting, how he was surviving. He didn't want to expose him. Not yet. He just wanted to understand. And what he found shocked him. Raj was staying in a rundown motel on the edge of San Jose. No stable job, no family contacts, a long string of failed projects. And debts, lots of them. One name kept coming up in those debt records. A man named Kamal Ranjan, a low-level loan shark who had ties to more dangerous people. It wasn't just desperation driving Raj. It was fear. Someone was pressuring him, blackmailing the past. To pay off the present, Sundar's hands clenched as he read the report. This wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It was something darker. He closed the file and made a call. "Michael, it's Sundar," he said to his top security consultant. "I need someone watching Raj quietly and find out everything about this man, Kamal Ranjan." As he ended the call, he glanced at the old photo again. Three boys. Three dreams. Now only shadows. And one of them was drowning. But Sundar wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Because somewhere beneath all this hurt, he still believed in redemption. But he had no idea just how deep this hole went. Asterisk, a debt beyond money. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds of Sundar's study, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. It should have felt like a fresh start, but everything in the room still carried the tension of the night before. The world outside continued its rhythm. Google offices humming, cars zipping down highways, headlines flashing on screens, but Sundar's world had narrowed down to one truth. Raj was drowning, and he had chosen to drag Sundar into his storm. But Sundar wasn't a child anymore. He wasn't the quiet boy with dreams tucked away in the pages of a notebook. He was a man who had the highest peaks of success, and now he was being pulled back to the roots he tried to forget. He took a long breath, then opened his laptop and stared at the report his security team had sent. It was more than just numbers or names. It was a timeline of desperation. Raj had borrowed money over the past 5 years from multiple sources, small amounts at first, then larger ones. The debts compounded, and the final name on the list made. Sundar's chest tightened. Kamal Ranjan, known in local circles as a silent enforcer, someone who never showed his face but always collected what was owed. People who crossed Kamal didn't just lose money, they vanished from their lives. Raj wasn't just desperate, he was in danger. The question was, could Sundar help him without rewarding betrayal? He got up and walked slowly to the window. City stretching out before him. The skyline shimmered in the sun, tall and proud. Yet even here in the heart of Silicon Valley, shadows from Chennai had found him. His phone buzzed. It was Pradeep. "I spoke with someone who used to work with Raj," Pradeep said quickly. "He's in deeper than we thought. He owes close to 500,000. Kamal gave him a deadline, 4 days. And if he can't pay," Sundar asked, though he already knew, "he disappears," Pradeep said grimly. Sundar turned away from the window and sat back down. "Do you think he has the original notebook?" "I don't know," Pradeep admitted. "But even if he does, would it really matter now?" Sundar thought about it. The fear of that notebook wasn't just about the code or the entries. It was about the shame. The idea that someone could take your most private thoughts, your fears, your failures, and parade them in public. But perhaps it wasn't the world that judged us. Maybe we were the ones who never forgave ourselves. "I want to see him again," Sundar said. "Are you sure?" Pradeep asked. "Yes. But this time, I'm not going to play by his rules." That evening, Sundar arrived at the same cafe where Raj had first appeared. He wore the same hoodie, the same jeans, as if trying to step into the same moment, but with a different purpose. He had reserved the back room, a quiet space with no windows, just warm lighting and wooden walls. It was the kind of place where honesty could breathe, or confrontation could quietly explode. Raj walked in 20 minutes late. His face looked more gaunt now, more tired. His clothes were wrinkled, his hands trembling slightly, but his eyes still carried that fire. Not pride, not confidence, but defiance. A last stand. So, Raj said, pulling out the chair slowly, you came back. I thought you'd run. I don't run, Sundar said softly. Not anymore. Raj gave a bitter laugh. Funny, that's not what happened in Chennai. Sundar leaned forward. I didn't come here to argue about the past. I came to talk about your future. Raj's smirk faded. I know about Kamal Ranjan, Sundar continued. I know what he's demanding. Raj's jaw tightened. You've been spying on me? No, Sundar replied. I've been trying to understand why someone I once called a brother would turn on me like this. For the first time, Raj's voice cracked. Because you left us. You left me? While you flew across the world chasing dreams, I was stuck in Chennai, in a broken home, with nothing but the ghosts you left behind. I had to fight every day just to eat. I borrowed money to start a business that failed. I got married and lost her. And every time I saw your name on TV, every time they called you a genius, I thought, that could have been me too. If only he hadn't abandoned me. Sundar sat quietly, letting the words settle. I didn't abandon you, he said. You pushed everyone away. Pradeep tried to help you. I tried. But you were angry, and I was ashamed. Ashamed? Raj scoffed. Of me. Asterisk. No, Sundar whispered. Of myself. Because I didn't fight harder to keep us together. Because I let you take the fall for the hack, even if you weren't the one who did it. Raj's eyes widened. You think I took the fall? Didn't you? Sundar asked. There was a long silence. Then Raj said, in a voice barely above a whisper, I was the one who used your code. I thought it would help me. I didn't mean for it to spread. But when the school started investigating, I panicked. I said nothing, and you took the blame in silence. Sundar's heart stopped for a beat. I thought you blamed me, he said slowly. Asterisk. I did, Raj admitted. Because it was easier than blaming myself? Another silence followed deeper. Now, filled with wounds finally being uncovered. So, why blackmail me? Sundar asked. Because I didn't know how else to ask for help, Raj said, his voice shaking. Because begging felt worse than betrayal. Because I didn't think you'd care? Sundar leaned back in his chair and looked at the man across from him, not as an enemy, but as a broken version of someone he once loved like a brother. I care, he said, but not enough to pay off a debt that will only lead to another. 1. Raj looked confused. What do you mean? I'm not giving you $10 million, Sundar said. But I'll give you something better. Raj's face twisted. What's better than money when a man like Kamal is hunting you? A way out, Sundar said. The next day, Sundar made another call, not to lawyers, not to PR teams, but to a woman named Kavita Patel, an investigative journalist who worked quietly on stories about corruption, human trafficking, and criminal networks. Kavita, he said, I need your help. There's someone named Kamal Ranjan. He's hiding behind fake companies, destroying lives, and I want to expose him. Do you have proof? She asked. Not yet, Sundar said. But I know someone who can lead us to it. Meanwhile, Raj sat alone in his motel room, staring at the envelope in his bag, the one he had waved like a weapon days ago. Inside was a photocopy of the pages he had salvaged from Sundar's notebook. Pages filled with pain, confusion, formulas, code. He held a lighter in his hand. For a long moment, he just stared. Then he struck the flame and page by page. He let the past burn. He didn't know what Sundar was planning. But for the first time in years, he believed in something again. In someone. He believed that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone anymore. Outside. The rain had stopped, but the storm was far from over, because deep in the dark corners of the city, Kamal Ranjan was watching, and he knew someone was coming for him. Asterisk fire in the shadows tonight settled like a veil over San Jose, quiet and thick with the scent of dust and diesel. The streets were still damp from the earlier rain, their wet surfaces reflecting neon signs like broken glass. In a narrow alley behind a crumbling warehouse, two black SUVs idled in silence. The windows were tinted dark. No one stepped out. They didn't need to. It was enough to be seen got inside the warehouse. Kamal Ranjan sat on a folding chair, dressed in a charcoal kurta and black coat, sipping chai from a steel cup. He was a man in his early 50s, face lined by time, but his eyes were sharp, too sharp. He had built a reputation in the underworld not by raising his voice or carrying a weapon, but by listening and acting when no one saw it coming. Across from him stood his informant, a lanky man with nervous eyes and a cracked phone in his hand. "You sure?" Kamal asked quietly. The man nodded. He met Sundar Pichai twice. Once at a cafe, and again. Yesterday, Kamal sipped again. And he's working with a journalist now? That's what I heard. Some woman. Real stubborn type. Kamal set the cup down. The clink echoed in the empty space. "People like Sundar," he said softly. "They don't get their hands dirty. But they pay others to dig. I want this stopped. Now." The informant hesitated. "What should I do?" Kamal looked up, his gaze turning to ice. "Find the friend, the one with the debt. Make sure he knows the price of betrayal." Meanwhile, Sundar sat in his office late into the night. Everyone else had left. The building was dark except for a few glowing floors. He was used to solitude, but tonight it felt heavier than usual. His phone buzzed. It was Kavita Patel. "We found something," she said. "Kamal is laundering money through a string of shell companies. And he's got half the city in his pocket officials. Lawyers, fake businesses. But the real twist? Two of those companies are linked to a tech consulting firm that works with international students. Students who disappear after enrolling." Sundar's stomach turned. "Trafficking? Maybe. Or forced labor. We're still digging. But it's ugly, and it goes deep." Sundar's voice was low but steady. "I'll fund whatever you need. Just expose him. And keep Raj safe." "I'm worried about that," Kavita said. "Because if I can find him, so can Kamal." Back at the motel, Raj sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by torn papers, old receipts, and bits of his past. The bag that once held the notebook pages was now empty. Ashes scattered in a small tin tray by the window. He had tried to sleep, but each time he closed his eyes, he heard the echoes of threats. The weight of fear never really lifted. It just changed shape. He hadn't told Sundar everything, not yet, because there was one more thing in the notebook. Something Sundar never saw. A final page Raj had written after he stole it back from the gutter. A confession. He admitted to copying Sundar's code, to showing it to someone else, someone who promised to help him with money, someone who had betrayed him, and that someone had connections to a man named Kamal. It was the first time Raj had crossed that line, and it was the moment he started running. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Sharp, urgent, 3 times. He froze. No one knew he was here. He crept to the door and peeked through the small hole. 2 men. Black coats. No smiles. His body locked with panic. He didn't open the door. Instead, he backed away slowly, grabbed his phone, and texted Sundar. "They found me." Sundar's phone lit up the moment he stepped into his home. He read the message and didn't hesitate. He called Michael, his head of security. "Get someone to Raj's location. Now, do not let those men take him." "Already ahead of you?" Michael said. "We've been tracking them since last night. My men are 10 minutes out." "Not enough," Sundar muttered. "Send a drone feed. I want eyes there now." He rushed to his laptop, connected to the secured surveillance link, and waited. On the screen, grainy footage popped up from a drone circling above the motel. The image flickered, then focused. The 2 men were at the door, trying to force it open. Inside, Raj had barricaded himself with a broken chair. Then the sound of a car engine roared. A black Jeep skidded into the parking lot. 2 figures in tactical gear jumped out and pointed at the intruders. They fled. Raj collapsed to the floor in relief. Sundar exhaled. But his mind was racing. They wouldn't stop. Not now. He picked up the phone and called Pradeep. We have to move him. Somewhere safe. I know a place, Pradeep said. A healing center in the mountains. One of our older properties, quiet, secure. We'll take him tonight. Thank you, Sundar said. I'm doing this for all of us, Pradeep replied. For the boys we were, and the men we still hope to become. Hours later, Raj was in a car with Pradeep, heading toward the hills. The roads twisted between pine trees and cliffs, away from the chaos. Pradeep didn't ask many questions. He just drove, occasionally glancing at Raj to make sure he was still breathing. Why? Are you helping me? Raj finally asked. Because you're my friend, Pradeep said, simply. I tried to destroy Sundar. I know, Pradeep replied. And he still chose to save you. Raj stared out the window, tears silently falling, back in the city. Sundar wasn't sleeping. He was going through old files, photos, emails, even documents from his first days at Google. He was trying to remember anything that connected him to Kamal. Because if Raj had been roped in by someone linked to Kamal, maybe Sundar had crossed paths with this man too. Unknowingly, then he found an old pitch deck. 12. Years ago, a consulting firm had tried to partner with Google to provide tech training in India. The firm's name? Nivran Tech Services. On paper, it looked legitimate, but a small note on the last page caught his eye. Backed by private investors in Tamil Nadu. Contact K.R. K.R.Kamo Ranjan. Sundar sat back in his chair. They had tried to enter his world once before, and he had unknowingly blocked them. No wonder Raj had been targeted. This wasn't just about money. It was about revenge. The next morning, Kavita called again. I have names, files, everything. We're going live. In 2 days. Full story. Do you have protection? Sundar asked. I do now, she said. You were right. It's bigger than we thought. Trafficking, labor abuse, even links to offshore scams. Good, Sundar replied. Let's shine the light. And in that moment, he made another choice. He picked up his phone and recorded a message. Not for media. Not for defense. But for truth. This is Sundar Pichai. And today, I want to talk not as a CEO, but as a human being who made mistakes, who lost friends, and who now understands the cost of silence. He didn't know if he'd release it, but for the first time, he was no longer afraid of the notebook, because he wasn't hiding anymore. And soon, neither would the man hiding in the shadows. Asterisk, the reckoning begins sky above Silicon Valley. It was unusually calm the next day, painted in soft morning hues that barely hinted at the storm brewing underneath. While the city hummed with the quiet rhythm of early risers and coffee carts, a very different energy pulsed behind the glass walls of Sundar Pichai's home office. His study had become a war room, papers scattered across the desk, 2 monitors, displaying satellite feeds and encrypted messages, and a thick file labeled Nivran Investigation resting beside his untouched cup of tea. Stared at the video file he had recorded the night before. The words were raw, unpolished, spoken not like a CEO, but like a man reclaiming his story. The file wasn't scheduled to go public yet. But if things escalated, he would release it not as damage control, but as a declaration. Transparency had become his only weapon. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Kavita Patel. Are you sitting down? She asked. Yes. What did you find? Confirmation, she said. Nivran Tech was a front. Kamal was using it to run fake student training programs. He funneled vulnerable young men from rural villages in India, promised them tech jobs in the US, and when they arrived, their passports disappeared. They were locked into coding sweatshops, paid pennies. Some were even sold to dark web contracting rings. Sundar felt sick. This has been going on for years, at least 7. And here's the twist. You remember a government fund you helped set up to support underprivileged coders in South India? Yes, that was one of my earliest philanthropic programs. Well, Kamal tried to apply for a grant using a forged identity. Your board rejected it. That's when he marked you. And through one of his people, he found Raj. Sundar's heart dropped. Raj wasn't just a friend lost to time. He had been a pawn, a target, used for leverage in a twisted revenge plot stretching across continents. We're preparing the article, Kavita said. It goes live tomorrow morning, but there's something else. What? Camel knows, she said, voice suddenly tense. One of our tech researchers got doxxed last night. Threats, weird messages, even a drone spotted outside his house. Sundar, this man is dangerous. Sundar took a long breath. I understand. He hung up, stood up from his chair, and walked outside. His backyard was quiet, just the sound of birds and the rustle of wind through the trees. But his mind was loud buzzing with fear, guilt, urgency, and, above all, determination. He called Pradeep. How's Raj? He asked. He's been quiet. Pradeep said, we've given him space. But something's shifting in him. Last night he asked me if it was too late to make things right. It's not, Sundar said. But he has to speak. Meanwhile, high up in the mountains at Pradeep's healing center, Raj sat on the porch overlooking the trees. A soft fog hung between the hills, giving everything a dreamlike glow. His eyes were tired, but clearer than they had been in years. He held a steaming cup of tea, untouched, his mind lost in the rhythm of cicadas and wind. When Pradeep stepped outside, Raj didn't turn. You ever think some people are just ... born to fail? Raj said quietly. No, Pradeep replied. I think some people are just never given a safe place to fall. Raj finally looked at him. I lied to Sundar. I knew what I was doing. I told myself it was survival, but it was greed. I wanted to hurt him, and now... He trailed off, eyes shining with shame. Now he's saving you, Pradeep said gently. Despite everything, why? Raj asked. Pradeep smiled faintly. Because he remembers who you were, not just what you did. Raj stared out at the valley below. He wants you to speak, Pradeep added. To be part of the truth, Raj shook his head. I'm no hero. You don't have to be a hero, Pradeep said. You just have to be honest. That night, Sundar arranged a private live stream between his office, Kavita's newsroom, and the secure location where Raj was staying. The plan was simple. Raj would give a full recorded statement, detailing how he got involved with Kamal, what he was told to do, and how far the rot went. It would support the investigation, protect Kavita's team, and help bring light into a very dark corner. Raj looked nervous on camera. He wore a plain shirt, his hair uncombed, his voice quiet. But his words were raw and powerful. My name is Rajiv Kumar, he began, and I betrayed my best friend. He talked about growing up with Sundar, about their dreams and fights and secrets. He confessed to stealing the notebook, to using Sundar's code, to selling parts of it to a recruiter who promised him money, and introduced him to Kamal. He told me Sundar had blocked his company from entering the US market, that Sundar owed him everything he lost. He said if I could deliver something, embarrassing, anything, it would make things right. So I dug through the past, and when I couldn't find anything real, I made some up. He paused, tears streaming down his face, but I was wrong. I was scared, and now I see that fear doesn't excuse betrayal. When the recording ended, no one spoke. Not Kavita, not PR, EP. Not Sundar. They all sat with the weight of it. And then Sundar quietly said, "Thank you." But just as they began preparing for release, something unexpected happened. The feed cut. Kavita's screen went black. Sundar's phone buzzed with alerts from his security system. Then a message flashed. Across his screen, white letters on black. Enough games. Meet me, alone, or everyone pays. Attached was a pin, a location deep in a deserted industrial zone outside San Francisco. Kamal had made his move. Sundar didn't hesitate. He grabbed his phone. Called Michael. I need backup ready, but hold back unless I call. I'm going in, sir. Are you sure? Michael asked. I am. Just before midnight, Sundar arrived at the address. It was an old shipping yard, abandoned and eerily quiet. Containers stood stacked like silent towers. A single overhead light flickered near the entrance, bathing the space in a cold, blue hue. Sundar stepped out of his car, heart pounding but face calm, and from the shadows, Kemal emerged, tall, sharp-featured. Eyes cold as steel. I expected fear, Kemal said, circling Sundar slowly. Not bravery. I expected intelligence, Sundar replied, not desperation. Kemal smirked. You've been digging into things that don't concern you. Trafficking? Children concerns me. Using my friend to hurt me concerns me. Kemal's voice hardened. You ruined my network. You cut my money. You took everything. You did that to yourself, Sundar said firmly. They stood face to face. And then Kemal said something that changed everything. You think this ends with an article? With a speech? I have people everywhere. Do you really believe the world cares about one man's truth? Sundar didn't flinch. No, he said, but they care about many. And tomorrow, the world will hear from all of them. Kemal's eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. Sundar took one step closer. No, he said softly. I only regret not standing up sooner. As Sundar walked away from the yard, he tapped a button on his watch. Michael, he said calmly, send the team in and tell Kava to release everything. By sunrise, the internet exploded. The story was everywhere. Tech giant helps expose trafficking ring linked to education scam. CEO's childhood friend speaks out in shocking confession. Rajiv Kumar tells all, from betrayal to redemption. Thousands of messages poured in, some in disbelief, some in anger, most in gratitude, and somewhere in a small village in Tamil Nadu. A mother watched the news and whispered, thank you, with tears in her eyes, because her son, who had disappeared 2 years ago, had finally been found in one of the facilities shut down that very morning, alive, and free. Asterisk forgiveness beyond Famous Sun rose slowly over the hills of Northern California, casting golden light across rooftops and treetops alike. But for Sundar, pichai, the morning didn't begin with celebration. There were no victory speeches, no champagne toasts, no media appearances lined up. He stood barefoot in his backyard, a soft breeze stirring his hoodie as the world watched his name trend across every screen. And still, he felt quiet, not empty. Not broken, but still, a kind of silence that follows after something heavy has been released. Like exhaling after years of holding your breath. The headlines were everywhere. Tech titan exposes underground ring. CEO brings truth to light. Friend turned blackmailer speaks up, sparks global reform. But none of them told the whole story. They didn't speak of the pain buried behind decades of silence. They didn't capture the sleepless nights, the quiet guilt, or the way Sundar's hands shook just before hitting send on that public statement. Nor did they show the journey of a man choosing truth over fear, or the boy who once sat under a flickering lamppost in Chennai, dreaming beside two friends about changing the world. One dreamer, one peacemaker, one thinker. Now, 3 men changed forever. By midday, Sundar met with Kavita Patel again in person for the first time since this began. Her eyes were tired but alive, burning with purpose. You didn't have to go to that shipping yard alone. She told him. I did, he replied. Because some ghosts you can't send others to face. She nodded, understanding more than he said. The fallout had begun. Within hours of the expose, multiple arrests had taken place. Local authorities raided several fake tech firms operating under Kemal's web. Interpol had even gotten involved, expanding the investigation into Asia and Eastern Europe. The hidden truth had finally collapsed under its own weight, but Sundar didn't stick around for the cameras. Instead, he asked for privacy and boarded a small, private flight, not to a press event, not to a summit, but back home. Not to his California home. But to Chennai. 3 days later, under a mild Indian sun, Sundar stood on the same dusty road, where that old photo had been taken. It hadn't changed much. The walls were still cracked. The same tea stall still stood on the corner, and the school bell still rang with the same metallic buzz. Pradeep stood beside him, smiling gently. He had flown in ahead to prepare the center for a new initiative one. Sundar had quietly funded in secret a mentorship program for rural children interested in science and engineering, named the Triad Trust, a tribute to three boys and the bond. They once shared Dot, and then Raj arrived. He didn't wear designer clothes or hide behind sunglasses. He walked slowly, carrying nothing but a notebook in his hand. A new one, empty, untainted. They stood there, three grown men, in the same place where their journey began. And for a long time, none of them spoke. The air was filled with more emotion than words could ever carry. Finally, Raj stepped forward. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said. "You already have it," Sundar replied.